Clinchco is a small town nestled in a hollow in southwest Virginia. Now, it didn't evolve as most communities. It was built by the Clinchfield Coal Corporation for the explicit purpose of mining their coal. This is the story of a town that was built as a business venture, the people who moved there, and what happened to the people and the town when the mines closed.
Well, it was all practically in woods. Wasn't too much land that was cleared up. Just what people had to tend, and the people was thin settled. They was not thick settled back in them days. It wasn't Clinchco then, It was called the mouth of Mill Creek because they had this old water mill there, and it got its name from that. I think my daddy must have been born there. He told us about that, about how they used to get their supplies, what they needed, they'd have to buy from the store, like the sugar and salt and soda and coffee and that sort of stuff. And it'd take them 2 days to make the trip. They said they'd have to start out in the morning, and they could go all the way over there in the day and get their supplies, and then they'd come back so far, and they'd have to take up, When it come daylight, then they'd leave, and they'd be on their way then and come back into Mill Creek over there where they lived.
I was born out the ridge here about a mile down in a holler. Aunt Sally Edwards, she delivered me August the 12th, 1914. We had a good farm. It was a hillside farm, but it's 60 acres. I own it now.
Oh, my daddy was a farmer and a lumberjack. He worked in the winter in the woods and for a yellow poplar lumber company. And in the summer, he farmed. He was young. He's just 30 years old when he died. My mother was 28 and he was 30. And they had us 4 children now. After he died, she went to work for a boarding house washing the boarders' clothes. She'd wash them and iron them. And there was nothing for women to do here them days, except just wash and iron or do housework.
The lumber and the coal was the livelihood of the county. Previous to that, it was agrarian farm. Very little money in circulation. And then so when you get these companies coming in, you do get some money starting in circulation. Whether they're paying off in hard cash or scrip, but anyway, you did have something to spend. So the Yellow Poplar Lumber Company was one of the biggest old companies that worked in here before the railroad was built. Of course, they didn't stay in business too long after the railroad. Of course, come W.M. Ritter, and they were the world's largest lumber company. Ritters used horses all the time, mostly, big, large draft horses. And, of course, they pulled the logs out of the woods to the railroads, and they had railroad all over this county everywhere. They did have a few old steam shovels that they could use for outside excavation, but now most of your tunnel work was all done by hand. You had to go in there and drive that steel, like the old song about John Henry was a steel driving man. Well, now that's where that come from. And so it was pretty slow, cumbersome process. And you see some of the old pictures where you just see big gangs of men working up big rock cuts, loading rock on little push cars by hand to take it out. And down at Uncle George Tipton worked on that thing, and we asked him how they built the railroad. He said it was built by hand with a round point shovel. If it wasn't for the railroad, well, you wouldn't have had much mining or timbering to speak of.
Oh, they all men from Alabama, Georgia up in here. When there's a shortage of men, and they had to get men some way or another. And the railroads, that's the way they got their men too. They'd go in the south and hunt their men.
And they'd bring these colored people in there and work them. If one died, got killed, or anything happened to him, they'd just go out somewhere and dig him a hole and bury him, and that was it. They never bothered to try to find none of their people or nothing to notify them. They just took them out somewhere and buried them.
Blacks in Clinchco migrated basically from the tidewater sections of Virginia. That was one leg of the migration into the mountains because, see, there had been black coal miners in Richmond, Virginia, as far back as colonial times. Another leg of black migrants into southwestern Virginia followed a trail out of the Piedmont area of North Carolina, where they had essentially, after the Civil War, broken away from land tenancy, being sharecroppers, into what was their first opportunity to have cash-paying work. And perhaps the largest group of blacks who came into Clinchco for railroad building came out of northeastern Alabama. 4 million black people had been freed as slaves in 1865, so that by the middle part of Reconstruction, these large companies, such as the railroading companies of West Virginia and Virginia, began to broadcast for labor in these areas. They went further than that by actually providing transportation facilities so that the blacks wouldn't have to pay their own way there, because none of them had money anyway.
When they come in buying the coal and buying the timber, maybe 50 cents, $1 an acre, something like that, they get no. Now with timber, you could go out and look around and say, well, you know, I got some nice big trees here. But you didn't know whether you had coal under your place or not, or how much, or anything like this. And that was for the company to know, and they went around and taking core drill samples. They knew what was down there. They didn't have to tell you that. People back then didn't have any money, and a lot of them owned just acres and acres of land too. And so, Lord, they thought, well, you get $1 an acre, and oh, Jesus is setting pretty, see. It was very well planned because the company, that is Clinchfield, they knew what was here. They had a pretty good idea by the time they came in here of what these coal seams or these coal beds were like, the thickness, the quality, and probably the eventual worth of it. So when they came in here and built Clinchco, was for the explicit purpose of getting this coal out and providing housing and what they considered sufficient facilities for their workers in order to meet that end. They come in and built a town, maybe 280 houses, and most of them, as is typical with company towns, pretty much built on the same pattern. And of course, now there were a few larger houses, which mostly for the officials, some two-story houses, mine superintendents, and store and office workers, and this type of people. But by far, the large part of them were just these small 5-room dwellings. And I'd say for the time was when these houses were built, were well constructed and were nice houses. And I imagine that people thought that they was coming along pretty good to get to live in a place this nice.
I didn't think this was a town when I just see them little lights. And after they told me, said, well, this is the largest it be. And I said, well, I thought this was the toughest place ever I seen in my life. Men's coming out from work all sweaty and black and, and dirty. I thought that was the toughest thing ever I seen. But the people who live here, they were used to it. But I wasn't. I wasn't used to mining camp. But I got used to it after I got here and got acquainted with the people.
In 1930, I came here, and I've been here ever since, off and on. I pulled 44 years actually in the mine. That's all the work that I ever have did was coal mine. I was raised on a farm back in Harlan County. I went in the mines, I reckon, when I was about 14 years old, when I went in the mine. But that time you could go in the mine just at any age mostly. And they didn't pay it too much attention. There wasn't no law, nothing then.
Get on your knee pads and safety toes. We're going to the coal mine where the coal is low, riding on a lizard in 30-inch coal, the cable sparkling, watch a little wheels roll. Now, Lord, have mercy on a miner's soul, down on your poor knees in 30-inch coal.
I worked with white people all my life. They never did we always got along. We kind of worked to one another's advantage, and we just so say work together.
Miners always get along together. Miners is a clan. You do something to one miner, you just well do it to all, because they all took up for it. Well, you had to trust each other, because you didn't know what time that fella might be able to do something or say something or something to save your life.
Well, we read it in the history books, and the same old stories told how us poor miners all got rich digging that old black gold. That means the company got the gold. That means the miners' lungs got black. That means the company got the gold. That means the miners' lungs got black.
I started working in 1934, and that was a long time before the union come in. Union come in about 46. If you had water in the place, you tell the boss, I don't want to work that place until it's bailed, a bail of water out. And he'd tell you, now if you don't want to work it, you just go on out, get your tools and go on out. Then you had to buy all your tools. Said, you just get your tools and go to the outside. Said, there's a man on the outside with a shoe of a kind and a grapevine gallus waiting on your job.
I had a brother killed in 1930 in Faraday, West Virginia, in the mines, and I never wanted to go in the mines after that. And in fact, I wouldn't go in the mines. Superintendent wanted me to go in the mines and work, and I told him I wouldn't if it depended on my job. So I always worked outside.
Timber up that heading, set the wedges tight, or your wife and your children won't see you tonight. Scatter up a little rock dust, spread a little bit more, for we're going to the coal mine where the coal is low, riding on a lizard in 30-inch coal.
They was just all the time seemed like somebody getting killed or getting crushed in the mine. And we lived in number 9 when I was a little girl too, and I can remember them bringing them off this hill up here. And all the women in number 9 down there would all gather up together and talk and wonder they'd send somebody up here to see as soon as the doctor got up here to find out who it was that was killed.
Everybody who worked in the mines back in those days knew it was dangerous. But we was poor people. We had to make a living. We had families. We had to feed our families. They knew they was working in bad air. We used carbide lamps, and I've seen it when you go into the working place, there wouldn't be enough oxygen in the air to let the light burn. Now, you know it's dangerous when it's like that. And that's what's matter with us old miners now today, silicosis. Back a few years ago, I remember they called it miners' asthma. I didn't know what it was. And it's killed a lot of men, an awful lot of men. And it's killing some now, me for one. It's gradually getting me. Well, it's just a matter of time for anybody with that black lung. It's going to get him sooner or later.
They didn't want to pay you nothing if they could keep from it. Yeah, well, all companies are like that. They don't care for paying you nothing. And most of the time, you couldn't make $2 a day. I've seen many a man work all the week. Every day he'd get a day's work to do. And couldn't go down there and get a script dollar on a Saturday.
Attempts by the United Mine Workers of America to organize Clinchfield mines began in the early 1930s. Although Clinchfield tried to stop pro-union efforts from the beginning, pressure toward organizing Clinchco continued to increase. In April of 1939, nearly 2,000 men, women, and children from Virginia, Kentucky, and West Virginia came to Clinchco to stage a UMWA march. In response to the Union demonstration, Colonel Marion Battle of the Virginia State Police came to Clinchco with 70 of the state's 150 police officers.
And I remember when they was really come down to the nitty-gritty of trying to organize down here. They even called in the state troopers, and they told them from number 9 bridge going up toward Tar Pond They was assembling on the other side of the bridge, the other side of the railroad. And Battle had machine guns set up on this hill here facing the bridge. And he told them, he said, he drawed a line with his foot on the bridge and said, the first damn man that crosses that line, we'll kill him. And he meant it too. And they didn't cross it. They didn't cross it. And then after that, it seems as though that the men just really got enlightened, and they started signing the union card.
Which side are you on? My daddy was a miner. Oh, I'm a miner's son. I'll stand by this whole union until its work is done. Oh, which side are you on? Which side are you on? We're fighting for our contract, and we're fighting to be free. The picket line is a mighty long line. There's room for you and me. Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
We didn't understand what the union was for, what it stood for. And the company would always pay you a little more for your work than what the union would. And so that kept the men divided. They didn't know what to do. When they come in, they would always give us gas, guns, or anything it took to keep them men out of here.
It was not until 1945 that a UMWA contract was signed in Clinchco.
Clinchco was blooming one time. We had the ballpark, and a lot of people was living here. And everybody used to like to come to Clinchco when my husband was a baseball player. Everybody liked to come to Clinchco from West Virginia, Kentucky, and all around. So let's go to Clinchco. If things had been like they are now, those men that was playing baseball, they would have been in some big leagues, you know.
I had an uncle here, Sam Williams, and he was connected with the baseball team, and he had heard them talking about me playing ball. So he in turn tells the company about it. And that's the way I got in Virginia, through playing baseball.
Well, at one time down here at Clinchco, we didn't have to leave Clinchco for anything other than to go to Clintwood and pay our taxes. They had a commissary, they had groceries, they had clothing, they had a men's department, a ladies' department, had a confectionery, had a drugstore, had a druggist, had doctors and a doctor's office. And at one time, we didn't have to leave Clinchco for anything.
The drugstore was a neat little place. It's kind of like a cafe, a drugstore combined. And the black people come in, and just as you get into about the length of that seat there, was a counter, and that was as far as you could go. But all on the other side was a little small, neat tables around where people would come in and relax, sit down and eat and drink, you know, whatever they ordered up there. But we weren't ever allowed over there.
During the 40s, Clinchco was it was a boom town if I ever seen one. It was just like a gold rush. And at one time, on Saturdays or paydays, you couldn't hardly get through Clinchco. There was cars parked on both sides of the street. There's people on the streets. And there was every merchant that sold on the credit. He was standing there on payday, and most of the time, people that owed him would come down and pay him $5, $10, whatever they paid. And Clinchco was just really a boom town. I'd say from on up till the 50s. And then it started going down, started working out, and then the population started dropping off.
Yes, it was good one time. Everything was mighty fine. The coal tipples roared day and night. Then things they turned slow for no reason that I know. There wasn't very much we could do but stand a long time in the unemployment line. Woman, I could see it killing you.
Well, I'd like to have been here and seen it when it was on the boom. Well, I think that would have really been something. With some 1,500 men working at one time here, I'd like to have seen it back at that time with the mines going and everything, because it all done shut down by the time I come along. As far as Clinchco, why its day has come and gone.
Every one of my children, the reason they're gone now, they had to leave because they couldn't get no job. I got 8 children up in Boston now. They said if they could have gotten jobs, they never would have been this far away from home.
There's not even half the people that used to be here years ago. In Dixon County, Clinchco is the only black vicinity. And I guess there's about 21 families here. That's about it. And I look back at all the teachers and things when I was a boy, all the efforts they put forward to make things brighter and happier for us. So that kind of sunk into me, and I do the same thing now.
I stayed around here for a long time, and I worked these little wagon mines, and first one thing another till I seen it was just absolutely impossible to make a living in one of these little wagon mines. So I told my wife, I said, I'm going to Michigan. I'm going somewhere I can make some money. And I did, and we stayed 8 years, and then come back here. I know my wife, and she was so dissatisfied. And she said, just sell the place down there, and I won't have any place to go back to, and I'll make myself satisfied. I said, no, I'm going to go home when I retire. I'm not staying here. So when I retired, I come back home.
Going home to the life you left behind. Going home, going home, going home. One more time.
We had really been wanting a car since 1950. And we'd shopped around long in 50 for a car, but we just didn't have the money. Waited till we got the money. But it took us a long time, but we finally made it. So we don't owe nobody nothing for it. See you? Tell her how you like the car.
Oh, I like it just fine. If I could drive, I'd be like it better.
Got back here in these mountains, buddy. I wouldn't stay nowhere else but in the mountain, because I think we got some of the best people in these mountains that we got anywhere.